Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the final segment of Dialogue 2. I'm sure all of you had an engaging brainstorming and creative session while making your digital posters. I hope all of you have submitted your entries by now using the Google Drive link.
We're having some technicalities with that, ma'am.
Okay, so please do so at the earliest.
Same here, ma'am. Just give us a few minutes. We'll just upload it.
Okay. Organizers, please take that into account, please. Some of the participants have made a request. Please look into it.
Noted,
Okay. So now, before we begin with the formal presentation of the posters by the different teams, I will take this opportunity to introduce our judges for the event. We have with us Ms. Anjum Katyal as our first judge, and she will be interacting with the participants as they make their presentations. All of us yesterday, we have already interacted with her, so we are familiar with her. Welcome back, ma'am. It's so good to have you again once more with us here.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, ma'am, me too. Okay, going over to our second judge for today. It is Ms. Aisha Mitra. She is an illustrator and a visual communicator. She is unable to join us at the present moment, but will go through all the submissions later on. So without any further delay, let us proceed with the presentations. Raima, I'll now request to take over.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, everyone. This session is being live streamed on YouTube. The link has been shared with you, and you can go ahead and share that with your friends who are not able to join this meeting. A quick reminder, all schools must wrap up their presentation within 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, 30 seconds, you will hear a buzzer, which will indicate that you have 30 seconds remaining. The presentations will follow the order in which the schools have submitted their posters. I would request one person from each school to screen share their poster so that the judges can have a look. Our first school is Gardner International School. Can we start, please?
Roshmita, can you please share the screen?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Hi. So good afternoon. This is Gardner International School, presenting our organization, Say No to Fast Fashion. And we present our poster, which incorporates how fast fashion spoils and exploits their workers. We present to you an instance, a conversation between a buyer and a worker. Now, this conversation may look seemingly all right at first, because we've always seen buyers and sellers talk, right? Yet, the grave issue behind this is when we look beyond the words. Fast fashion is the mass production of clothes at a cheap price, often demonstrated by H&M, Zara, and all the shops that we call steals. What one must look into, however, is the impact of fast fashion. We've put forward one such instance, the exploitation of workers. Fast fashion retailers hire workers from low-income and developing countries so that they can be paid minimum wage of their country or absolutely no wage at all, to mass-produce clothes to satisfy the privilege, while at the same time disposing waste in the developing countries. This is a grave problem because this means that the rich get richer while the poor get poorer. Adrisha, would you like to continue?
Adrija, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. As we can see, the conversation which is happening in the poster is something which is not very likely to happen in real life, because we don't really get to meet the makers of our dress, the person who makes our clothes when we buy it from H&M, Forever 21, and more such fast fashion stores. We don't really get to know the person who was working behind it. So this conversation is something which is painful, but at the same time, it's not even happening. So let's hope that the next time we ever get, if we ever get to converse with someone who makes our clothing, it's not a conversation that looks like this, but a conversation that appreciates what has been made. And let's not brag the fact whenever we get a 50% discount, because we know that it is not really a discount. It is a discount of the salary which the workers deserve. That's it.
Do you want me to interact now, or are we doing this at the end? Is somebody from MHS?
Ma'am, you can go ahead and ask any questions if you have to. General interaction, like if you want to ask them any questions regarding the process or anything, that's up to you, ma'am.
Right, right. So what I'd like to know is that what made you choose this particular instance of, why the fast fashion? Was there something recently that triggered this in your mind, or what was the reason for choosing this particular example?
So I think we are all aware of the fact that after the app called Shein has been banned, everyone, mostly people of my age, I must say, have been very sad about it. And we have all been whining about the fact that we are not getting any alternatives to it, and how are we supposed to buy clothes at prices that were so affordable in Shein. But it also made me think that yes, we do get affordable clothes, but at the same time, we are wearing things that are a result of exploitation, that's a result of unpaid labor. So, and a very good, very healthy alternative to this would be so many small businesses and creator owned businesses. Like there is a lot of them in social media. That is one instance of how social media has been used to in a very productive way. So I think there's lot of alternatives if only one wants to. So yeah, that is why I think the
Right.
Shein
Thank you.
outbreak was definitely one of the.
Sorry, does somebody want to add? Yeah, so that's really, yeah, thank you for that, because also it's something that I think young people are very aware of, because they're the ones who really like to buy the, fast fashion, because it's reasonable, cheap, and you can use it for a while, change it, etc. So the message that you wanted to communicate, from what I understand from what you've told me, is you've already thought of an alternative, which is looking at smaller units which are creator driven and available on social media. But did you think of including the solution within the presentation of the issue in the poster? Did that come up at all, that there's another way of doing
we
it
were we were actually thinking of, like, because it's a poster where the structuring is limited, we were thinking of including that in our presentation, like the verbal presentation which we are giving now.
Right, right.
So we
So
had
is
that
the
issue.
presentation part of the poster is that also meant to be judged? Just wanted to check
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely.
from
And
the
I would also,
MHS team.
Yes, ma'am. It's part of the judging criteria.
Right. So that marks will be given on the interaction as well, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. The
Thank you.
presentation, whatever they say
Okay. So
regarding
that's
their
useful to
posters
know.
and the process.
Sorry.
Whatever they're saying regarding their posters, their process, and everything is taken into account for those last 10 marks, which we have kept for
All right.
poster presentation.
Yeah, presentation of poster. Okay, great. Thank you. So if I can ask you, as part of the presentation, if you were to extend the argument where you go beyond the problem and you're presenting the solution, what would you have suggested as alternates? As alternates to, instead of buying the cheap fast fashion?
Yes. So yes, like I said, one of them is definitely online small businesses, but keeping that in mind, not everyone has access to online in the first place. So there's a lot of exhibitions which happen, And I think people must also try visiting those exhibitions, 3-day, 2-day exhibitions. A lot of it happens in a place called ice skating rink, I think. So that would also be, those are good alternatives, because there you can see the worker, you can see the person who made it, you can interact with them, you can understand their struggles. So sometimes I think that is also necessary. It's not always about the money, it's also about the experience that goes with it.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. That's very nice.
Thank you, Garden High International. Next up, we have the Martini for girls. Can someone start sharing their screen, please? Thank you.
La Martiniere for boys, did you say?
No, ma'am, the Martini for girls.
Girls, yeah, okay, just found them on.
Right. So by a show of hands, how, okay, teachers, you may also participate. By a show of hands, how many of you have heard of the luxury brand Zara? Like, you just raise your hand using the raise hand option. Okay, is that it, or are there any more? Okay, now you may lower your hands. Now tell me, how many of you have heard of that local tailor shop situated right at the end of your lane? Again, I'll request you all to use your hand icon.
Could you repeat what you said?
Can you, like, if you have heard of that local tailor shop which is situated right at the end of your lane, like somewhere close to your house, if you've heard of that, you may raise your hand. That's it, right? Okay, all of you may lower your hands. See, now this is where the difference lies. All of us know about all these luxury brands, and we'll be ready to even die for owning one of their products, which comes at like the cost of an individual's kidney. But none of us are ready to buy a beautiful hand-stitched piece at an extremely affordable rate from a local shop. Though there are many of us who buy from local stores, yet we do make it a point to end up bargaining with the shopkeeper even for the cheapest item. On the contrary, they are going to be the same set of people who will not even think about bargaining for the most expensive item that they will purchase from any luxury brand. As rightly said by Oscar Wilde, fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable that we have to alter it every 6 months. Having chosen the topic of fast fashion, my teammate Vaishali will explain the whole idea behind our poster.
So good afternoon to everyone present here. We are for the workers. Our organization is named for the workers, and we are for the workers. And our motto is us for them. So we are here for them. As you can see, there are hands reaching out from all sides. It's our hands which are reaching out to the workers working in these large companies who are treated like slaves almost. So you can just imagine all of this happiness that you get from shopping and all of this that you do. There is so much that is going behind the scenes. Now, our point is not to guilt trip someone for indulging in shopping. At one point, all of us have, and it is natural. But the point is that we need to shop wisely. We need to know what is going on, and we need to be aware of what is actually going on in these scenarios. We can always have so many other alternatives. Like, there are, in this pandemic especially, we have seen so many small businesses rise. So maybe one of your friends have started a small business, so many thrift shops. You can always resort to those instead of instead of contributing in this sort of a thing. Maybe instead of going to the H&M in the mall, maybe you could always look at a thrift shop. It even helps in sustainability. So you can see how many aspects there are, how many good aspects there are if you think wisely before shopping. Again, I will mention, it's in your hands, and it is not our job to guilt trip you. It is a job that Sorry, the host muted me. Could you all hear me?
Your time is actually up.
Okay. So I'll just wrap it up. So as I said, it is in your hands, and it is your duty to see what you want in when you shop.
Thank you very much. Should I go ahead with the questioning now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's in theme of hands, and the hands reaching from the top, reaching from the bottom. And as you very clearly said, that it's in your hands is the subject of the poster, the title of the poster, and that in your case, the way you described it, the hands are the hands of the customers or the consumers reaching out for the product. But is there some other interpretation one can think of for these hands? Like when you talk about it's in your hands, what are the other hands that you can associate with this kind of branded fashion?
The other hand that we can use here, as you can see from the top, the hands are the ones which are reaching out to the bottom, where it is, you can see it is stained in red, which is the workers who are working so much in order to
Okay. So you've used a red stain. You've used the red stained hands to indicate the hands of the workers, the people who actually produce the product. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That's
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
And the presentation has also made it clear that you have a solution to offer.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that there is the alternative that you feel is an option rather than going in for branded fashion. So if I'm correct in assuming your main thrust here was not so much the exploitation angle of fast fashion, but more that the brands are a kind of almost like something that you can avoid in favor of people who are actually slaving to produce their own products, right? Like the local neighborhood tailor. Is
Yes.
that what the focus was on? Yes, that is this sort of hunger for a blind sort of sort of desire of branded products sort of tend to lead us off the path towards, I mean, away from people who earn their livelihood by making handmade products for us. Is that, am I correct in assuming that?
Yes, ma'am. That was the general idea we wanted to portray through our presentation today, through the poster.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you much. Thank you. Okay, we
Thank
can
you,
move
ma'am.
on to the next.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Martini. Next up, we have Mahadevi Birla World Academy. Can someone start sharing their screen, please?
Thank you. Greetings to everyone. We are Amalgamated Saviours, and we are a small group of people working to uplift the interest of all of the workers we see around us who are exploited. And today we have chosen to take up the issue of fast fashion, and we are glad to see that so many of our peers feel the same about the issue. Mahatma Gandhi had once said, "No fashion, no cloth is beautiful if it brings around unhappiness and hunger." When you buy the cheap clothes, the inexpensive evolutions of beautiful clothes, have you ever thought of the hands that work against it? Well, in our research, we have found out that the workers who work in these sweatshops, they need to work more than 16 hours a day. And in all of those 16 hours, they are not allowed to even use the washroom. They need to be in adult diapers. Otherwise, their pay is cut off. And as we know, they are already paid a very limited amount of money for all of the hard work they put in. That brings them to a situation of near starvation. And of course, the way that they are made to work day in and day out just to have not even 2 square meals a day, that leaves them utterly exhausted and brings health issues. And if that is not enough proof or enough push for us to shift from fast fashion, we would also like to tell you that it leads to environmental destruction as well. Fast fashion releases 1.2 billion tons of greenhouse gases into the environment every year, which is more than all the greenhouse emissions released by international flights and shipping combined. So you can understand that just for the sake of cutting down costs, the amount of harm that we are doing to the environment by going for fast fashion. So what could be the alternative? Instead of going for these clothes or these emulations of very high, well-known fashion brands, we can choose to uphold our own culture and heritage. That becomes a part of our duty to preserve what we have got from our previous generations. So we can choose to support the local workers or the local tailors or the local craftspeople who make similar clothes, and we can go for those and we can also go for sustainable brands instead of going for fast fashion. And as we also know, we can use our own clothes, the clothes we already have, for a longer period of time. We can recycle those clothes, or we can buy second-hand clothes. We can even give out our clothes for recycling instead of discarding them, which is again another way by which fast fashion is promoted. I hope we have been able to put forward the impact that fast fashion has, not just on the workers who are working for the same, but on the environment as a whole. And as we know, whatever happens to our environment in some way or the other, it comes back to us. Thank you. That would be all from us.
Thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive overview of all the various reasons why fast fashion can be harmful and should not be supported. And I see that in your poster, you have also tried to communicate so many of these reasons that you've spoken about visually. So I wanted to ask, when you were discussing how to put together this visual expression of what you were trying to say, what were the kind of, because you've made certain choices, like for example the way you've used the space or the small figures, what was the discussion around the use of doing this, including all these various things, as opposed to maybe making one point and then letting that speak for itself?
Definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, first of all, we thought of expressing the way that, all of these issues on one side and the one single benefit we are getting from the other side. Yes, we are getting cheap clothes, which is why, and beautiful, which is why there is that model or the lady you can see with a lot of space. But on the other hand, what about the entire cluster of issues that is cropping up from it? So the workers are not even given a healthy working condition to function in. And it is inhumane. Right. The way that they are treated is absolutely inhumane. There is no empathy. There is no regard for their dignity. It is a loss of human dignity. And that in turn is a shame on all of us. And the way we are contributing to environmental degradation as well, taking into account the situation that already exists, that is another right. aspect of indignity. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Divya. That you've already explained that in your presentation. So thank you. I think what was very interesting was the sort of overview that you were managed to give, from environment to exploitation of workers, the right and health and hygiene. That was very well done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mahadevi Billa. Next up, we have Modern High School for Girls. Can someone start screen sharing, please?
A very wise person once said, "Fashion is the armor to survive the reality of everyday life." But if the armor is adulterated with fakeness, then the chances of surviving the reality of everyday life becomes extremely bleak. Fast fashion, that is what I'm talking about. Are you falling into the trap of fast fashion? Reject it, cold shoulder it, shun it. Try fast fashion. Over to Anupama.
There are several adverse effects of fast fashion, and despite the fact that it is quite contagious to day-to-day life, here are some of the things that fast fashion really takes a toll on. The working conditions are terrible, and it really does not help the workers in any way. And the entire point of fast fashion is to make the material used to make the clothing cheap. And cheap material always refers to environmental hazards.
Therefore, the environment is adversely affected in every way possible. Once a person disposes of the clothes that are made out of the cheap material, the commonest method of disposal is carting it off to the dumping ground and then burning it. And the toxicity of the fumes that are released due to this contributes actively to global warming and the greenhouse effect. More with regard to the metaphors we've used in the poster, this is a minimalist poster, and the depiction of the hands is our attempt to depict in a very graphic manner the plight of the workers who are engaged in catering to the fast fashion industry. The choice of the neon green refers to toxicity because neon green is a color that one associates with plastic. The color pink that is used over here refers to humanity and refers to youth, which refers to our hope of the fact that the youth of the modern society would want to bring about a change in the industry. Coming to the name that we've given to our brand, it's Rengard. Rengard is the French word for tacky or basic. And when the French use the word Rengard, they basically use it to downplay the idea of tacky fashion. We use the hands in order to evoke some amount of empathy from viewers towards the workers. And that is what fast fashion should not be catering to. The workers are the prime concern, and the masses and the consumers ought to recognize that.
Thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive presentation. And thank you for also explaining your logo and the choice of why you decided to do that. I was planning to ask you that, and then you told us. I was just wondering the choice of hands that you have shown here. You said that the connection you wished the viewer to make is with the sort of deprived workers, or the sort of the hands of the workers who are very poor and exploited, right? Do you think that there is a chance that these might be seen as the hands of the consumers grasping, reaching out to buy and consume and grasp at the fashion and on offer towards the figure?
Ma'am, I definitely think that the hands can have various different interpretations. First of all, the first interpretation that we had was of the exploitation. It's basically showing how the hands put together the entire costume or the entire style that is being shown in the poster. The second is obviously the consumers trying to grasp at the fashion, how fast they consume it, how fast this entire industry is growing, because consumers think that the clothes are cheap, they can be made available easily, and they can actually access it way more easily than more hand-grown brands. And last but not the least, because we're trying to portray handmade or hand-stitched and how people use their hands to actually give birth to these clothes, and it's sort of like people's labor which goes into it. That's exactly why we were showing these hands.
Thank you. That means you are trying to show the hands as a symbol that has multiple readings, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, MHS. Next up, we have Sushila Birla Girls School. Can someone start sharing, please? Thank you.
Yes. So the name of the organization is Environmental Clothing Organization, which is a non-profit organization, and we are going to be presenting a poster on fast fashion. And we basically chose this topic because being vivacious teens, we kind of resonated with it, and clearly all our other peers have also resonated with the topic, as we have clearly seen with all the previous presentations. So we can see our slogan, fast fashion, not free fashion. So initially, if we talk about the 1800s, that is when fashion was something that was very slow. Shopping was a very occasional activity. But fast forward 2 centuries and the Industrial Revolution, and fashion became fast. with all the different fashion shows and the catwalks and the new trends every single day, and the trends that keep on changing, consumers wanted to copy these trends, to emulate these trends, and to emulate the models. And that's why fast fashion is such a big industry right now. So when we as consumers go to these fast fashion sites and we see these thousands of different styles and these different clothing, and we are attracted by, say, oh, buy two get one free or 50% off, we often lose sight of the fact that it's not free fashion, it's fast fashion. We lose ourselves in this delusion and we interchange these two terms because it's not free fashion. Someone somewhere is paying for it. And because everything in this world has a price. So even though we are getting it for cheap prices, there's someone somewhere out there in the world who's paying for it, be it the environment, be it the workers, be it the animals. There's always going to be a price. Clearly, from the first picture, we can see the amount of damage it does to the environment. Did you know that polyester and all the other synthetic fibers that are used for fast fashion are the leading causes of environmental pollution and also non-biodegradable? The second picture, we can clearly see that the sewing machine is actually symbolic of all the trends all across the world and the trends that keep on changing. And the little boy is symbolic of all the laborers and the workers who are oppressed and who have to be subjected to these inhumane conditions to meet the demands of us, the consumers. We, the consumers, are unconsciously feeding into this entire culture of oppression and damage by demanding more and more new clothes and by endorsing this entire trend of look and chuck. We want to keep up with these new trends, and hence we always want to buy more clothes. Our demands and our needs are insatiable. In the third picture, we can see made in inhumane conditions. I'll quickly wrap up. Made in inhumane conditions. We can see that the tag label is covering the face of little boy, which shows that these workers are faceless and we don't know who the producers or the makers of our clothes are. So the next time you go to a fast fashion website, just remember, fast fashion is like fast food, meaningless, harmful, and goes bad too soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Wanting to know from you that the sewing machine and where is this created or was that taken from somewhere?
Yes, ma'am, could you repeat? I really could not hear you.
Sorry, is this any better? Can you hear me better? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Right now, and they're not stopping. But can you hear me clearly? Can I repeat my question?
Ma'am, it's very faint.
I was asking about the
Ma'am, your voice is really faint right now.
is any better?
Yes, now it's better. Now it's better.
This is better. Okay, I'm just putting my video off temporarily. Yeah,
Yes,
just saying that when you the image that you've used, the central image of the sewing machine, was that an image that was you've taken from somewhere, or that an image that you put together yourselves?
No, ma'am, it's not an image that we put together ourselves.
All right. So this was an image of the net which you saw, which you found and used, right?
Yes, ma'am, we incorporated it in our
Yeah,
poster.
because it's very striking, and so I was just wondering where, because it gets a lot of things in at the same time, So but it's a very clever use of it. So that's good. And yes, I think that kind of covers the questions. The top image that you've used is the one that in which you intend to show the environmental degradation. That is also, I'm presuming, that's a photograph of the net, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. And I particularly found it interesting the way you made a link between fast fashion and fast food. And can you tell me a little bit of how you came to that? what was the process by which you decided to use that?
And we were basically trying to brainstorm different slogans, and the first thing that struck us was, as teenagers, the only thing that we resonate with is fashion and good food. So we thought it would be better if we could correlate between the two. So we realized that everything that is bad is what attracts us as teenagers. Everything that glitters is not gold. And fast food is clearly something that we all enjoy. And we thought correlating the two would be something very interesting and new. So we thought, why not incorporate it in our poster?
Okay, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Shall we move on to the next presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, SBGS. Next, we have the Doon School. Can someone start sharing, please?
Yes, I'm sharing my screen. Sorry, I'm not being allowed to screen share. Can I just rejoin the meeting, please?
Please
Yes,
go
sure.
ahead.
Is there anyone else from the Doon School who will be able to share?
I'll do it if you want. I can share. Just wait. Yeah.
We can't see the poster. I think it's still loading.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see it now.
Can I start presenting if it's all right?
Yes, please go ahead.
So as we all know, fast fashion is used to generally refer to the inexpensive clothing produced rapidly by mass market retailers. And this is usually done in response to the latest trends, right? And due to the hurried nature of this process and because of the rapid pace and the consistency at which trends continue to change, it takes this industry of fast fashion takes a heavy toll on several different aspects of our society, right? Like other presentations have shown, workers are forced to work hard and work fast at wages that don't permit them to sustain themselves with a decent quality of life, right? And the waste from the production and from discarding the old unfashionable clothes, it takes a heavy toll on the environment, and we try to incorporate all the aspects of this into our one poster. As you can see, we've created a bill which we try to in which we try to contrast the consumerist aspect of this with and by showing a bill, but instead of showing the products that a consumer is buying, we've highlighted various statistics and facts that we found to be quite striking. Like, for example, the percentage of total annual global carbon emissions, as we've shown in the poster, is 10%, right? And this is way more than for example in this is more than the aviation industry and than international flights and shipping and product shipping combined, which we found to be quite striking. And the amount of water that a factory uses to produce one shirt is 2,700 liters. And we found this quite striking, especially in contrast to places like South Africa, where in some cities, families and households are being forced to conserve water by avoiding flushing after using the restroom and stuff like that. But to produce one single T-shirt for a consumer satisfaction, it takes 2,700 liters of water, right? I'll just finish. So what our aim to do with this, what our aim with this poster was to raise awareness about the issues, which we try to do by sharing the statistics, and in the process encourage people to stick to their own closet and not like refresh their wardrobe each time a new trend arises. And so what we try to do is raise social awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation and presentation of your poster. The idea of presenting it through a bill, which is then subverted actually, because instead of what you usually expect to find in a bill, you presented a cost of fast fashion in a very innovative way. I wanted to ask you that the choice of background against which you present the bill, can you talk a little bit about that? What were you, I can see that it's some kind of a waste or a rubbish heap kind of thing. What was the thinking behind that? Because just let me hear a little bit
yes,
from
ma'am.
you.
Thank you for your question. So what we wanted to do was highlight the environmental aspect of fast fashion and this industry as a whole. Because and we tried to do that like we pointed out with the statistics. And so to give a more visual representation, something easier for people to visualize, we thought the most straightforward idea would be that of a dump yard. We tried to show a textile waste yard, and not try to, we showed a textile waste yard and highlighted the bill against it to emphasize on the economic impact this industry has.
Okay, and the choice to make it a horizontal poster?
Ma'am, we felt, I mean, one, it went with the image choice, but also we felt that a horizontal poster, while the bill would still remain the same, we'd be able to show more in the background. And we felt that because it could show more in the background, and that it was something that not like that would like sort of set us apart, we thought it would be a more striking idea to sort of show it horizontally.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. We can move on to the next.
Thank you, Boone School. Next up, we have Assam Valley School. Can someone start sharing, please?
Sorry, could you repeat the name of the school?
Ma'am, this is the Assam Valley School.
Assam Valley.
Yes, ma'am. And just a small announcement here. We will please request all schools to wrap up within 2 minutes. As you can see, we are really running late and we have quite a few schools left. So a request, please try wrapping up within 2 minutes. Thank you.
Before we begin, our internet is really bad, so we'd appreciate it if you let us know if we're lagging.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't catch that. Can you just repeat, please?
Ma'am, we just wanted to say that our internet is quite bad, so if we were lagging, if we could be notified, that would be great.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Our organization is End Fast Fashion, and our aim is in our name. Our slogan is cheap clothes cost lives, and our main body of text is the planet is choking and dying. Animals of all kinds are crying for that addictive price tag, bearing blood, sweat, and tears of one just like me. She sits all day with no pay, wearing nothing but rags because my cheap clothes cost lives and fast fashion is not free.
Our fellow poster makers have already touched on the effects that fast fashion has on today, so we won't be focusing much on that, but rather on how we, as people who have made posters, can help highlight this issue for everyone around us. The short poem that we've written talks about all three aspects that fast fashion is mainly hitting right now, which is the environment, people that are exploited, usually coming from poor socioeconomic backgrounds, and animals whose fur and other parts are often used in fast fashion clothing. Our poster takes inspiration from other posters that we've seen throughout the years, which contain slogans that have a certain sense of a rhyme scheme so that it sticks with the audience. So that's why we added the poem. The image itself is not only a representation of us as fashion, but also the producers who are facing these horrors, who are dumb and can't speak about their oppression. And of course, all of this is highlighted by the blood hands which have blood on them, which symbolizes how we all have the blood of lives on our hands due to fast fashion. We've included elements of a price tag, which is often the first thing we see in fast fashion. And we've included a hashtag, because hashtags often sticks with audiences. And our primary aim was to make sure this was a poster that would stick with the audience. We've also included a timer, which is simplistic in its design, because we have the simplistic aim of getting things as soon as possible without considering the deeper consequences. And we've also got a shopping cart because of the consumerism that fuels fast fashion, even though deep down it's just an empty drive to buy. We are End Fast Fashion, and this is our poster. We really hope that it has an impact, it leaves an impact on everyone here today. And we really want to reiterate the fact that fast fashion is not free. We must end fast fashion, and cheap clothes cost lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes,
yes, ma'am.
Right. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your sort of logo. Your title, your name of your brand or your company is End Fast Fashion. And what was the choice of the visual? What was that you intended? For the logo, I mean.
Ma'am, for our brand logo, we picked yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your question. For the logo, we picked a rose because we feel that through all the media that we've consumed, roses often symbolize love and solidarity. And that's what we feel towards the people who are oppressed by fast fashion and are facing the systemic changes that come with it. And so this rose goes out to them.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That was interesting to know. And yeah, you've already explained all the various little symbols that you've used, and the poem that you've written also covers most of the issues that you raised in your presentation. So thank you very much. We can move on to the next.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, AVS. Next, we have Delhi Public School from Gurgaon. Can someone start screen sharing, please?
If you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to hide. But shouldn't the better question be, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why should you care?
The world isn't in the best shape today, with the COVID-19 pandemic flaring and social media giants gaining more and more data on us. This issue gains even more importance when, during this pandemic, which has accelerated the digitization and with a sudden and large-scale move to teleworking and the use of digital services in hospitals, laboratories, and government services. With companies gaining more and more data on their users and social media becoming more prominent, this issue has become of even greater importance.
The entire world saw the power of this data with the Cambridge Analytica scandal that compromised the data of various Facebook users. And we also saw this in what happened a few days ago when there was a massive outage at the Facebook headquarters that affected Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. If a privacy is taken away without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity, then the assumption is that everyone is potentially guilty until proven innocent, instead of the opposite. In the wrong hands, private data can be used to target journalists, persecute activists, crack down on free speech, and oppressive governments will use surveillance to control the opposition. All this takes is a change of the government.
This poster shows the color blue to symbolize cybersecurity. The people are shown in red to show that they're in grave danger. Our organization, World Data Association, has handcuffs made with binary digits to show the snatching away of the freedom as its emblem. So these handcuffs are broken to symbolize how we need to work towards gaining our liberty back. The other argument stating that companies already have our data and the government doing it is no different. But the fact of matter remains that while collecting data, big companies have to ask for consent. And moreover, the data can be withdrawn by the subjects at any time. Whereas this is not the case with the government surveillance. It gives us the freedom to allows us to choose what we want to do.
Mass surveillance is an unprecedented intrusion in the privacy of ordinary people. At no point in history have we accepted that governments should be able to monitor everything and anything we do just to keep us safe. Imagine if we were told that they wanted to install cameras in our living rooms or microphones under tables in coffee shops to ensure that they could catch criminals. This is the physical world equivalent of online mass surveillance. It is a huge overreach of government power, and we consent to it every time we say we have nothing to hide. But instead, we should say to our governments that I have nothing to hide, but my privacy is none of your business. We have to put our hands together and stand together against such an oppressive world.
I'd like to end our presentation with a quote. Arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying that you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And it's very interesting that you've chosen this very hot right now, which is data privacy, which affects everybody all across the world, but I think young people as more than anybody else. So I think that was a good choice. I wanted to ask you that you started right on top of your poster, the main messages that you're sending out are these two statements. If you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to hide, and I'm not doing anything wrong, so why should you care? These are the two statements that you wish to actually disprove or argue against, right? From I've understood your presentation. So can I ask why you chose to give so much space on your poster to what you don't want to communicate?
On the fact, yeah, Anna, go ahead.
The first line says, if you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to hide, which is basically the argument against us. And what we are trying to say is that if we are not doing anything wrong, why do you care enough to look into our data? So the second line is our argument. And in order to make the poster dialogue based, we have put the other people's argument as well, so that we can disprove that.
And I'd like to just add on to this. The fact of the matter remains that this debate has been going on since the past 2 decades, ever since social media giants such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that they've come into existence. And every time we've raised the question of our data being compromised and our privacy being breached, they have the same. They always have the same justification that if you have not done anything wrong, then what do you have to hide? So the fact still remains that this particular phrase, it still remains a vital part of the justification, and we're trying to disprove that. You could also raise the issue of the concentration of power, which we saw in the form of the massive outrage. I mean, I think every one of us, we all question our internet first. The thought that Facebook or Instagram have shut down, that didn't even cross our minds because of the fact that they have become so ubiquitous, and they sort of hold a monopoly, not even in terms of economy, but a monopoly over all of our data. So that's why that formed an integral part of a poster.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Glad to know you thought about it and have a very clear idea of why you put it there. Thank you. We can move on to the next.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delhi Public School. Next up, we have Indus Valley World School. Can someone start presenting, please?
Okay, hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. So, as we all know, fast fashion is a recent global phenomenon. Large companies and multimillionaires invest in the labor of garment makers in poorer countries, women and children who work in grievously strained conditions and are highly underpaid. And you will, of course, know the most controversial current examples of Shein and H&M. This happens because of two reasons. One, uneducated consumers, and two, apathetic consumers. Now, the woman here basically represents a garment producer whose blood, sweat, and tears go into the making of these clothes. The red is to loudly metaphorize blood, and these flow on a conveyor belt for companies to pick up as per convenience. The black conveyor belt, as you can see. The tiers over here have price tags, the dollars representing the original worth of the clothes that they would have in relation to the effort put in. And as they fall lower, the denomination falls. As you can see, this is representative of the fact that fast fashion makes companies sell these clothes at very low prices, so all profits accrue to the companies, and basically the garment workers get none of the benefits. As aptly quoted below, a cat cannot walk on a runway of blood. Fashion models catwalk on stages wearing clothes produced by people who will never reap a proportion of their efforts. Now, we are a generation of easy access to education, but we're also guilty of ignoring it as per convenience. Now, if you can cancel celebrities, you can cancel brands. I, of course, know that, as a teenager living at home myself, it's very difficult for us to bring up these issues to our parents, who are the main consumers. But there are always alternatives. And so maybe you can't make smart decisions right now, but that's okay. You are a youth and you are the one who influences the future. Educate now how to be better as an adult. It's our generation's responsibility to choose smart fashion, ethical fashion, and empathetic fashion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to put my earphones on because a lot of noise just outside my window. 1 second. Okay, thank you for that presentation. Can you tell a little bit about your logo and your brand, please?
We are, of course, a brand called Good Karma. And basically, I'll let you in on a little secret, ma'am. Basically, you see everyone over here, almost everyone amongst the participants, have chosen fast fashion as a topic. So that means everyone's interested in it, right? Now, we're a corporation. We live in a capitalist society. You prey on what people are interested in. Why are we making this poster? Because everyone is invested in it. And when people are invested in something, it's obviously a company like ours' job to make profits out of it.
Okay. Thank you. And was there a choice? Was there a thinking behind the choice of the design of the logo that you can share?
A simplistic, wholesome logo that you have nothing to question about, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Okay, we can carry on to the next one.
Thank you. Next, we have Sarvottam International School. Can someone start screen sharing, please?
Yeah, sure. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so as I start, fashion as we see has been all about social coordination. Our poster deals with how fashion changed the entire
idea of modeling and showing our women have not. We are also still about the person inside the body, but what's outside. Empathy needs to be generated and developed towards this very concept, and this is what should entirely matter.
Clothes are just a mean of comfort, not a way of judgment. And here you can show empathy by not judging us. As mentioned above, fashion is to express, not to impress. Our clothes should not become a medium of seeking validation. It is to be ourselves and portray our unique self.
Are you done?
No, ma'am. Actually, showing empathy represents an important dimension of the communication, and the attitude and the fashion just translated it to the unconventional way. Empathy needs to be generated and developed towards this very concept, and this is should how entirely matters. Thank you and have a nice day.
Okay, was that the end of the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Right. So, from what I understand, you have chosen to look at fast fashion, but you've taken a slightly different approach to it, to a lot of the ones we've been hearing right now, where you're emphasizing individuality and individual style rather than herd mentality of wearing what is mass produced. Am I correct in that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about your brand and your logo?
Ma'am, actually here we have want to tell the conventional message that the fast fashion is not only changing the trend and the styles of the people, it is also about thinking the mentality of the people for their women in the society. For actually changing them with the various things that Sati Pradha and Burkha system. That's why our motive was to show this. That's why we have branded this everything.
Yeah, I think that is already expressed in your poster. But I was trying to get a sense of the logo that you've chosen. I'm trying to figure out in the poster in front of me. I can't quite make out where the logo is. Have you included a logo?
No, ma'am, actually we haven't included any logo.
Sorry?
Ma'am, we have not included any logo.
I'm not being able to follow. Your voice is very garbled. Sorry.
We have not included any logo.
All right. Okay. So you haven't chosen to include a logo. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. We can move on.
Thank you, Sarvottam International School. Next up, we have Garden High School.
Can I just ask for a 2-minute, just quickly, just filling in some marks, and then we can
Yes,
move
ma'am,
on.
sure.
Right. So
Sure,
this
ma'am.
was
Sarvottam International School.
Yeah, this was Sarvottam International School. Okay,
Yes,
just give me a minute and then I'll
Yes, ma'am, no issues. Next up, we have Garden High School, so you can be ready. Once ma'am is done, we will begin.
Right. You can carry on.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you say that it was Garden High?
Yes, ma'am, Garden High.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We from Garden High School would be presenting a poster on fast fashion. What is fast fashion and what are sweatshops? Fast fashion is cheap, trendy clothing produced rapidly by mass market retailers in response to the latest trends. Sweatshops are factories where people labor under very poor working conditions for several hours under a nominal pay. And many fashion brands have such factories in developing countries like India. Most fast fashion brands are owned by breakneck capitalists who disingenuously exploit their factory workers, most of them being migrant laborers. And apathetically, these capitalists hardly care for the health of neither their laborers nor their customers. All they strive for is monetary gain. This raises a question in our minds: how can they be so inhumane? As we know, empathy is embedded in the hearts of every creature, and it is the very essence of survival. These capitalists have just acquired beastly intentions which grounded the tender feeling of empathy. We therefore hope to usher in an era in which empathy shapes society and not the other way around. After all, empathy stems from one's openness to change, and all socio-political movements should be powered by empathy, as it is the very essence of life in a society. We should endeavor to look at fashion from a point of view that is sustainable. Consumers, I feel, should stop to ponder over the pitiable conditions of those who have made their goods. Companies will never let consumers use their rationality to think. Empathy should break the walls they have created so that it acts as a bridge between them and the laborers. It is at our organization MIL that we believe only empathy can facilitate one to envisage reality, breaking down the barriers of superfluity and greed. The pile of clothes at the background, which we have used, is used to depict the waste and the other non desirable things which is produced by fast fashion. The money at the forefront is used to show that people prefer buying fast fashion more instead of choosing sustainable forms of fashion. The white stick figure is the worker who is forced to work in terrible conditions. And the net and the light bulb shows how fast fashion replicates and is copied from catwalk trends and high fashion designs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. You said that your brand was called MIL. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So what does MIL stand for?
Okay, so we don't. MIL stands for Make It Last.
Make it last. Okay, and how does it link up with your with the visual of part of your logo? I presume that oval lozenge on the top right, which has the black T-shirt and thing under it, is the
That
logo.
is the logo. Yeah.
Yeah. So how is this? How does the name of your brand link up with the design of your logo?
May I call upon Sneha to explain that, please?
Sure. I mean, what was the idea behind the visual of the logo? Maybe just that would be enough to explain.
Actually, we sort of revolted against the idea of fast fashion, that is, the ones which are produced quickly.
Okay.
So we just wrote the opposite thing, that make it last. We don't need fast things.
Yeah, so that's fine. That's
okay,
the that's the name of the brand, but the visual that you've chosen here.
Okay. We tend to say that we need simple things, just the t-shirt, and we don't need a heavy fashion. We are
right.
Like we are fine with simple things.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We
thank
can
you.
carry on to the next.
Thank you, Garden High. Next up, we have the Vasant Valley School. Can you please begin?
Okay. Hi, everyone. So this is the poster we at Vasant Valley School have made. Our organization is called the Safe Stitch Society, and our aim is to spread sustainable fashion. So the treatment of labor and workers in this capitalized world is perhaps the most apathetic and inhumane thing. Forget the big time industrialists, businessmen, and capitalists whom we villainize and criticize as if we are much above them. Isn't this hypocritical of us as consumers who are the first to line up outside the H&M Zara shops or shop at Shein or Urbanic when there is a sale? We are all guilty of this, and it's indeed a very sad reality that we would rather bargain to save $1 than save a human life. When we wear these trendy clothes, we're actually wearing the blood, sweat, and tears of the workers. Many people buy and wear an outfit for one occasion and just a few hours, disregarding the horrifying history behind the clothes and of the makers of the clothes. And as you can see, our slogan, which is one lifetime of suffering for one night of extravagance, highlights the stark contrast between the extravagant, ostentatious lifestyles of the rich and privileged that are ignorant to the suffering of the proletariat.
All right. So we are already familiar with the concept of fast fashion, right? So it's apparel companies to describe the designs that are swiftly transition from the catwalk to physical or online stores. So what are they basically trying to do? Catch up on current trends, cater to the changing market needs, but at what expense? This expense is of numerous lives. Fast fashion clothing requires cheap labor, which is in the form of 14-year-olds working 14 hours a day in sweatshops, along with poor wages. These children are often forced to deal with sexual harassment, verbal abuse, and whatnot. A few years back, there was an incident in Bangladesh when a factory got closed down. There were 1,200 deaths and over 2,400 injuries. How many of us remember it? How many of us knew about it? How many of us honor it? It's a question that often makes us wonder. And ma'am, since you have been asking about, the significance of our logo and what we stand for, we advocate the rights of we advocate the rights of the labor who work in the fast fashion industry. The scissor is the emblem of Safe Stitch Society, which is the name of our company. It is done with the purpose of depicting the fashion aspect of fast fashion, a simple tool used by many laborers, which eventually morphs into an armored weapon that leads to the death of them eventually. But nothing remains paramount than the perception of those who wear themselves out to earn these little scraps of money that does them no favor. It represents a sad life.
Is that the end of the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, can you just repeat for me what you said the name of your company was?
Ma'am, it's called the Safe Stitch Society. It's sort of an oxymoron.
Okay, the Safe
Stitch Society.
The Safe Stitch Society. Okay, so SSS. And have you chosen a visual depiction of that?
Yes, ma'am. That's what I said, ma'am. The scissor is our emblem.
Ah,
reflect on it a little bit more, or once again.
Okay, fine. Can you talk to me a little bit about the color scheme you've chosen?
Sure, ma'am. Of course, we were asked to go only with 3 colors, so we decided to go with different shades of red. So because red depicts represents violence, danger, and anger, and we wanted to convey the danger and suffering that the laborers go through, and want to invoke anger among the public against such exploitative practices.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you very much. We can move on to the next group.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have the Heritage School. Can someone start presenting, please?
Yes, I'll be presenting. Just a second. I'm unable to present. So Parush, can you present your screen instead?
Yes, if you could give me a minute.
Yeah.
I am unable to present as well for some technical reason.
Shall we come back to the school
Exactly.
later?
So can we go ahead to the next school and then come back to
Yes,
theatre
sure.
in some time? Yeah, thank you.
Can we go ahead with Don Bosco Park Circus?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Can you see the poster?
Yes, it is visible.
All right. So the topic that we've chosen is plagiarism this time. Of course, as you all know, being an artist myself, when you see your work being plagiarized by people, no matter how many times it's been plagiarized, even if it's been done once, if you are an artist yourself, you know how that feels, right? Without giving credit, they just source all of the work that you have put into something for so long. Idea that is an idea that is completely originally yours, taken by someone else who probably doesn't even understand where it comes from. I will start with the color scheme first of all. So as you can see on the right side, there is a person at work, and we have used pink and deep red for those, which stand for vibrance, originality. And on the left, there is gray. You can see a person running away with this person's work, right? So stealing it, plagiarizing it. And that is representative of triteness, of overusage, of lackluster, something that is very lackluster because it's been used so many times, hence plagiarism, right? There are a few elements when it comes to language as well. So there is, we have used be kinder, it takes a lifetime to create, but just a second to destroy. So we have put the element of empathy over there as well. And as you can see, just on top of this person, support nascency, meaning birth, giving birth to something, and reject piracy, right? We as an organization are called the Vigilantes. We chose the name since vigilantes are usually people within a community who try to enforce law by themselves without being a legal body, and that is because of the lack of, let's say, legal measures to prevent plagiarism. And even if there are, of course, legal measures to prevent plagiarism, it still happens. Songs are sampled endlessly, movies are remade scene to scene without even the person who is remaking it mentioning the fact that they remade it. And people overlook all of that because the second part of it gains more popularity. I'll give you one example, that is this song that blew up from the Italian band Maneskin, that was Begging. It was actually a cover of a much older version of the song, which was the original, and so many people don't even know the original exists because of how popular the cover became. And that is, I'm not saying that was plagiarism because they made sure to tell people that that was a cover, but that is exactly what happens with plagiarism, because the plagiarized ones gain more popularity somehow. So that will be the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much for that presentation. You said that the name of your company was, because it's a small, you said it's called the Vigilantes, right?
Vigilantes, yes.
Vigilantes, okay. And what was the choice of the visual that you chose to go with your logo?
The visual was, there is a shield, right, in the shape of a shield. And there is the wreath of peace that you see used everywhere, olive leaves surrounding something representing peace. So we wanted to go for the idea that we as the Vigilantes are the shield. We are trying to spread awareness about this and protecting artists from having their work stolen like that. by trying to spread awareness about the fact that plagiarism is still very, very prevalent and needs to be taken action against. Action needs to be taken against it. And the piece, because obviously, if we can prevent plagiarism as much as possible, we are going for creating a society which lies their foundation more on the basis of originality.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's and it's interesting to see that you've chosen a theme which is different from a lot of the other presentations we've seen so far. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye. We can
Thank you
move
so
on.
much, Don Bosco. Is the Heritage School good to go next?
Yes, let me just present my screen.
Yeah.
Yep, is it visible?
Yes, it is. Ma'am, this is the Heritage School.
May I start?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, fellow teachers and students. I would the Heritage School is proud to present this poster relating to fast fashion and how how we think it might be a bit overrated in today's capitalistic world. Now, we have obviously noticed how different schools have phenomenally presented the problems regarding fast fashion and how they have proposed brilliant solutions in order to combat them. But today, we would like to talk about something a bit different. We would like to talk about how we can actually use fast fashion in order to help those poor sweatshop workers who are slaving away their lives in creating clothes which we would use for a couple of which we might use for a couple of hours maximum. So we would first like to say that fast fashion, although it has a lot of negative ramifications, it helps in boosting the economy to a certain extent, and by boosting the economy, we mean that it actually increases the GDP of the nation. Now, this would actually allow the government of said nation to actually help those sweatshop workers earn a better amount of wages and live a better lifestyle as compared to as compared to them not as compared to them receiving minimum wage. So we would like to say that instead of eliminating fast fashion completely, we can probably use it in order to help i- in order to help educate people and maybe have them take informed decisions regarding consumerism and exploitation, which may or may not also affect nature and wildlife implicitly. So in conclusion, the Heritage School wishes that all the students and teachers objectively analyze this poster and they can draw their own conclusions and talk about it with us if they wish to. Because at the end of the day, if we all don't care for ourselves, then we are truly lost. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I would like you to just to explain a little bit, talk a little bit about the various components of your visual. So you've got this little child on the left-hand side corner, and the tree, which looks like a dead tree, and there are some green leaves that are floating down from that tree, and then you have this heap of discarded clothes, I think is what you're trying to say. Can you just talk us through the connection between these, please?
Yes, most definitely, ma'am. Now, obviously, the child is being put there to sort of represent those immigrant workers who are working over 16 to 20 hours a day in order to produce these clothes, which you see. Now, the relation between the tr- now the relation between the leaves and the clothes are uh, between the leaves and the clothes are that nowadays trees, instead of shedding their leaves in order to provide fuel to light fires which might warm a family of such immigrant workers on a cold winter's night, they are being transformed into clothes and different articles and other merchandises of such big capitalistic brands, which are then being dumped into the which are then being released into the natural habitat of the planet, thus poisoning it to such an extent that we are facing global warming on a much bigger scale. So we try to bring that. We try to
Okay,
bring that
thank
up.
you. And what is the name of your company or brand?
Our The name of our brand is the one which you see on the poster emboldened. It just says fast fashion is overrated. That is the name of both our brand and our company, if you will.
Okay. And you don't have a separate logo?
No, we don't. That functions both as our brand name and our logo.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. We can carry on to the next.
Thank you, the Heritage School. Next up, we have Cathedral and John Cornyn School. Can someone start sharing, please? Yeah.
Great. So our topic is the topic that we've chosen to do our poster on is data surveillance. And Jaden and Krisha are just going to give everyone a little bit of background on the topic.
So in the last few years, we've seen an increase in data flow online, and along with that, we've seen an increase of pervasion of this new opinion that if you have nothing to hide, you should be okay with data companies, and you should be okay with wide-scale government surveillance of data. And we'd just like to remind all of us to be empathetic and to think that we only have nothing to hide as long as the government that is in power says so, as long as the government that is in power holds the same values that we do. And we ask that everybody be empathetic to those people who are doing nothing wrong, who shouldn't have anything to hide. But because the government that is in power, because the authorities that are in power don't share the same values as them, because of that, they have to hide and they are treated as criminals. Krisha will further elaborate on this.
So we thought of a couple of examples when we were coming up with this poster. So we thought about the Tiananmen Square in China, where you can't essentially post pictures of that square on like social media. We thought about how pride parades are still controlled by the government, and about how even their voice is silenced because of data surveillance and the various ways in which they're harmed. Then we also thought about the FISA Act, which is essentially the foreign surveillance act that the United States uses, and how they essentially use this act to track down any extremist organizations in like other countries or any people who live outside the United States. And the plight that those people meet with, even if there's no fault of their own, is not something which is very empathetic in its nature or very like humane in its nature, which is why we felt like surveillance has its pros and cons, and it is very important to like look at the kind of surveillance you're doing and answer questions like, is the surveillance I'm doing affecting other people? Does it have any adverse effects? Is it like ethical in its nature, so that when you collect certain data, it doesn't like harm anyone in a way that it's not supposed to? And the entire poster just made us realize that like data is something which is indispensable to us, and even if the users are the weakest link in this area, data surveillance is necessary to some extent, but at the same time we need to be responsible in its usage.
So I'll just going to briefly cover the visual elements of the poster as a whole. So we used three primary colors aside from white in this poster. We used black, blue, and red. And so the biggest element that we wanted to showcase in this poster was evidently that of the eye, which is sort of significant of the government bodies or the legislations that are conducting this mass surveillance. And we wanted to label them as the observer, and the man who's shown here doing something as simple as answering a phone call as being the observed. And so the background that we chose for our poster was simply a blue sky, because it represents something that's a very common occurrence, and it could just be another day in your life, but you don't know that you're being sort of watched by the government. And we wanted the eye to be red because that's something that signifies danger, and that's something that sort of signifies an invasion of one's privacy, which is what data surveillance is really all about. And finally, in the background, we sort of wanted to include some visuals from the things that Krisha and Jaden talked about, like the pride marches and other protests. And coming to our logo, we wanted to make this sort of like a public service announcement by a company called the Subhesh Lad Institute. And we sort of wanted this to represent kind of high brand companies that have a very, that sort of disseminate information to the public. And that's how we came to the conclusion that we wanted our logo to be sort of complex. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation of the and presentation on your poster. I just wanted to ask you that you have shown a sort of person, could be anybody answering the phone and the eye looking down from on top. But the choice of the two images that you have put there, there's one which is a protest procession, which you said you identified with the gay pride parade, and you have the black salute protest clenched fist. Do you think that by identifying these two particular images, you sort of limit the ramifications or the associations that people could have with the kind of things that are going to be seen as taboo or cause of for surveillance?
So in these are the backdrop under which this person is making this phone call, right? And for example, the government is surveilling this person in the backdrop of these events. These events are not in any way wrong, but the government doesn't share the value of these events. And so they surveil this person's phone calls, they surveil this person's life, and they surveil everything about this person. That's why those are in the background while the person is in the foreground.
Okay. So you're indicating the choice of at least two movements where it's just a difference of value systems rather than any inherent right or wrong against the society, right? Which the government is choosing to decide is, any government is choosing to decide is worthy of surveillance or a danger.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we can carry on to the next one.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Next up, we have the Newtown School.
Okay, good evening all. We will be made a poster on data surveillance. So we are rapidly entering the age of no privacy where everyone is open to surveillance at all times, where there are no secrets from the government. This was a quote by William O. Douglas. It is true. Data surveillance started out with the online behavior tracking designed to help marketers customize their messages and offerings, driven by companies aiming to provide personalized products, service, and content recommendations. Data were utilized to generate value for customers, but data surveillance has become increasingly invasive, and its scope has broadened with the advancement of technology. The former expands to surveillance to our homes, cars, and daily activities by harvesting data from smart devices and mobile phones. But the latter extends surveillance and places it inside our bodies where biometric data can be collected, for example, fingerprints. However, it's not all black and white. Like everything in this world, it is gray in nature. One of the features that benefits us is that data is used to track and circumscribe people's behavior throughout space and time. An example of space-based tracking is geomarketing. With access to real-time physical location data, marketers can send tailored ads to consumers' mobile phone devices to prompt them to visit stores in their vicinity. Another place where it comes handy is health applications, which track and structure people's time. They allow users to plan daily activities, schedule workouts, and monitor their progress. Some applications enable users to plan their caloric intake over time. Other applications let users to track their sleep pattern. This definitely does have a negative side as well, one of which is digital traces are collected by multiple governmental and business entities, which engage in data exchange through markets whose structure is mostly hidden from people. For example, Facebook, which was involved in a scandal for compromising people's personal data. Sometimes there's also an issue of consent. Now I'd like to pass it on to my teammate, Shreya, who's going to speak about empathy and integration of it.
So, digital empathy, if I may put it into words, is the application of the core principles of empathy we discussed yesterday in sessions for compassion, cognition, and emotion into technical designs to enhance user experience. Basically, to be reflective and socially responsible while strategically using digital media. Does the line on our poster says that digital empathy is not only to understand your audience, but to provide and share with them information that is relevant to their needs.
So is that the end of the presentation?
Yeah, once again, we're just explaining the logo, which is Be Safe Tape. So Be Safe is like being safe. Whatever. So our company, aims on protecting our customers' data and privacy. Whatever company we work with, their data is protected at all times. We make sure that the privacy is not compromised because we value our customers and their needs. We know that it would affect them badly if their data was misused. So
okay, thank you very much for that. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the choice of the way you have presented the visuals in the poster, the choice of the color blue and the shades of blue and the various images that you've used.
So it's basically like when you're very unguarded. So when you go into different websites, you have cookies. You just without noticing, you just press accept cookies, but they're all tracking your information throughout the websites, what you like and what you're doing. Based on that, they build like an online profile of you and they recommend you stuff like that. So this person is in an unguarded position, they're sleeping. So, and their laptop is open. So like it's always tracking you to the eye. It's always tracking you wherever you're going. And blue is like the screen color that's emitted by the laptop. So I just kind of put it in blue.
Right, right. Okay. And this line that you've added, Control and Alt and Delete every time you leave, is that an instruction to the audience of how to be safe?
Yeah, because sometimes some of our data is very personal and there's an issue of consent, like I said. So to avoid that, sometimes we need to like delete the history and stuff to erase the cookies. And
right.
It's just a precaution. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Next up, we have the Army Public School. And ma'am, if I could please request you to restrict yourself to only one question because we're really over time. If that's possible, maybe one question per school.
Not a problem, no problem.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, next up, Army Public School.
Good evening to one and all present here. Today, we, the students of Army Public School, Shankar Vihar, taking this opportunity, will present our poster on the topic plagiarism.
Since we stand by plagiarism, we have made the entire poster on our own using digital art. When we look at the poster, we will see that there's a manuscript made by a person named XYZ. When the person ABC is clicking the picture, we can clearly see that he or she or they have cut their name and written their name instead. So we should make sure that we are definitely never ever plagiarizing. Make it, don't fake it. It's as simple as that. So let's take a step further and empathize with each other.
Plagiarism can be seen in our day-to-day life. Like most common example can be seen in schools. Students stealing notebooks, copying during exams, etc. Plagiarism can be seen on social media. Multiple people posting the same meme or jokes as their own. Now I pass on to Freya.
When we think about plagiarism, we often don't realize that whatever the source that we may copy it from, or the person that put their idea onto the source, they might have trusted it and the people that are accessing it. The fact that apart from IPR, that's intellectual property rights as a whole may state, we heard the person whose ideas it was in the progress. They might as well be feeling sad that their ideas have been plagiarized, or they might have been not, or they might not know that they have been the victim of plagiarism by others. That's where our morality comes in, along with the empathy that we possess. The lack of empathy that there is by us for the person, and that they would or might feel, is what we ignore, and that becomes negligible in front of our eyes. In the end, to conclude, I would say that find it within yourself to not click Control plus C in the name of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation. My one question is that I see that your company's name has been given, but what is the reason behind the choice of the visual for the logo?
Right, ma'am. So as you can see that we have written green letters because what we want to show by that is the fertility of imagination. We can also see the blue rings, which means the flow of our creativity. Apart from that, there are also some leaves, olive branches that are present over there. Those depict those depict nature, and they depict how naturally creativity comes towards us. And our organization is called it's called the prevention or the agency of plagiarism prevention. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. We can continue to the next. I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
that's the last school now.
Yes, ma'am. The last school, Delhi Public School, Newtown. Yes, ma'am. I will be sharing my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible, Manaswita. Thank you.
Yes.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. This is the poster designed by our school. So, as you can see the logo at the bottom left corner or bottom right corner, it says Phoenix. So, the organization is called Phoenix for a particular reason, as we know that the phoenix is a mythological bird which rises from its own ashes. So, our organization tends to create awareness about the exploited conditions of the workers who are underpaid by the fashion industry, and the fashion industry is reported to be the one of those industries which have the maximum amount of workers working in them, and they tend to go underpaid and work in not very good conditions, as we know, the sweatshops. So we tend to solve issues that they have with the organizations, and so that they know what rights they have in terms of labor. So the reason we call this Phoenix is that we help them to fight back from something that they consider as their destiny, which is being exploited and not being paid properly. So we deal with the fast fashion topic as well. So as we can see here, the picture demonstrates a sewing machine with a worker working to create a fabricated beautiful dress. But what we don't know is that the designers who designed these dresses initially, they never think that it can be replicated and duplicated at such a low cost, because these dresses are like very cheap to purchase, and that has an adverse effect on the makers who design them, because they do not get paid for their labor, and that has affected them at a large scale. Then we see that there's a hand which has got puppet strings attached, and there's a person attached to that. So it's basically a symbolic representation of the workers today, because they are literally the puppets of the people who like are their employers. It's a capitalist economic society. So this is like the condition right now. And fast fashion, because these dresses are very cheap, we don't really tend to care for them, and once they become old or tear and something like that, instead of recycling them, we just dump them and burn them by the natural way, like the way we have always done. So that's the reason that it also causes a tremendous amount of pollution. So I think the only way to support these workers is to show them a little love, as we have written there, and we have to show them empathy so that they can also stand up for their own rights.
Okay, thank you. That was I presume that was the end of your presentation. and you have explained the choices behind your visuals. But my question is, again, I'd like to, you've explained why you chose Phoenix as a name for your company, sort of a revival or re-rising from the ashes. But can you explain uh, the logo that you've chosen, the visual? Seems to be a crown and a laurel wreath and a ribbon or medallion. Can you explain why that was chosen?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, if I can bring your attention to the wreath that you referred to, it's actually in Greek mythology. We know that and even in the Roman times, the nobles and the royalty used to wear these as a symbol of their status. So this has a significance of showing that the people who are now not at a very desirable level in the society can rise to that level, and it's a crown on it to no that's sorry I'm sorry that there is a trident on it to show power that they hold, to show that they can trident has always been associated with a certain amount of mysterious and heavy power that anybody holds. Our own goddess Durga has a trident, the Greek god of sea Poseidon has a trident, and both are very revered gods in their own respective mythologies. And the ribbon is just for the ribbon is just to add a little
all right, finish off the image.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. We can carry on. I mean, that's the end of my questions. So I was just wondering, not at all, thank you. I just wondered if it's possible, before I send in my markings, is it possible for me to go over the posters once more? Have you got them saved anywhere?
Yes, ma'am. We have a drive link, so we'll share it with you.
That'll be lovely, because I'd just like to have one final look at it. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. And thank you, Ms. Katyal, for gracing us with your continued support and being with us throughout Dialogue 2. It was really lovely having you with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I really enjoyed seeing these wonderful posters, and thank you for sharing and for inviting me to be part of this.
You're most welcome, ma'am. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, students, for your wonderful presentations, which clearly showed that how much you have absorbed from the previous sessions. With this, we conclude Dialogue 2 of Raising the Bar with UBUNTU. Thank you all the teacher representatives and the students for participating and actively engaging in all the sessions. We at MHS sincerely hope that you have found the sessions enriching and thought-provoking, and that you are taking back with you a different perspective that is not shy to stand apart in a world that is at most times unkind and jarring. Let us all use words responsibly and kindly that will act as building blocks of bridges and not walls between us. So I conclude with the hope that the language of empathy will stay with us forever. Thank you.